We are starting chapter 5, which is all about macromolecules. Now, we've been over, excuse me, we have been over the actual organic chemistry portion where you should be able to recognize the carbon backbones and some of these R groups that are on these very large molecules. So, with every living organism, there are these really large complex molecules, and they're collectively called macromolecules, macro meaning large, and they fall into one of four classes. We are talking about our carbohydrates, our lipids, proteins, and our nucleic acids. So these macromolecules in one of these categories are very, very large. Sometimes they can be small, but most of the time they are very large with very complicated side groups. Some of them have a very common core, a backbone, like in your carbohydrates. Most of them are carbon and hydrogen with some oxygen, and we're going to find some nitrogen in some of our proteins. They all have very unique properties, and their atoms are arranged very, very orderly, but at the same time, they can be quite complicated. This is a picture of a protein, and proteins probably have the most complex of all structures because there's four stages to their configuration. So when we get there, proteins have very, very complicated linkages. And of course, we get strength from protein, and this is what our bodies are making all the time. All of our hormones, our neurotransmitters, all of those are proteins. So as we get into those can be really quite complicated. Now, a polymer, and you may have had this before, but our polymers are just big molecules that consist of very small molecules, and those small molecules are called monomers. So you can add monomer to monomer to monomer to monomer, and you're going to end up with a polymer. Polymers are just large molecules. So polymers can actually be carbohydrates, they can be proteins, and they can be nucleic acids. Now, the reason that lipids or the fats are not part of this is because they don't have monomers. So there's going to be very specific subunits or monomers that we put together to make a carb. To make a carb, we're going to put together what's called a monosaccharide. To make a protein, we are going to link together amino acids. And then with nucleic acids, which is our RNA and DNA, we are going to link together what are called nucleotides. So each one of these large polymers is made of repeating units of a small molecule called a monomer. All right, enzymes. Enzymes are biological catalysts, actually, because they catalyze all of the chemical reactions in our body. And all of our biochemical processes, breaking our food down into energy, require enzymes. So they're very specialized, and what they're doing is they're speeding up these chemical reactions, and some of them are needed to put monomers together to make the polymers, and then we need enzymes to turn around and break those polymers down into monomers. So all of our biochemical reactions require one or more enzymes. Now, when you're putting monomers together, and there is a picture I'm going to show you in just a minute, but when you're putting monomers together to make a polymer, a molecule of water gets released. So that kind of reaction is called dehydration. De means to take away, hydro means water. So adding monomers to make polymers is dehydration. If we have polymers that we need to break down into the subunits, then we're going to have to add water. Lysis means to split. Hydro means with water. So when we are taking or disassembling these really large molecules like we do when we eat them and we have to break them down, a molecule of water has got to be added, and that molecule of water, or a lot of water actually, is going to be needed to split. You would never eat a baked potato without first boiling it. That's adding water. You would not eat pasta without first boiling it. So those are carbohydrates that are very large that in order to process, we have to hydrolyze them. And that means we start that process with water.